Good morning, boys and girls. This is Miss Matthews, and today we're going to go over pages 302 and 303, and then you're writing on page 305. All right, today we're going to read a poem called A Tragic Story by W.M. Thackeray, and it's from the book of humorous verse. So, as I'm reading this to you, I want you to listen to some of the things that we've talked about already this week. I want you to listen for rhyming words. I want you to listen to the rhythm. And we're going to talk a little bit more today about the meter. Remember, we talked about the meter or syllables in each line or each verse. So, first thing we're going to do is I'm going to read through the poem with you. If you come to a word as I'm reading that you're not quite sure about, circle that word. We do that in class too. So if we come to one that you're not quite sure what that word means, just put a little mark beside it, and you can go back and look that word up, or you can use your context clues to figure out that word. Okay, so this is called A Tragic Story. There lived a sage in days of yore, and he a handsome pigtail wore, but wondered much and sorrowed more, because it hung behind him. He mused upon this curious case, and swore he'd change the pigtail's place, and have it hanging at his face, not dangling there behind him. Says he, the mystery I've found, I'll turn me round. He turned him round, but still it hung behind him. Then round and out and in, all day the puzzled sage did spin. In vain it mattered not a pin, the pigtail hung behind him. At right and left and round about, and up and down and in and out, he turned, but still the pigtail stout hung steadily behind him. And though his efforts never slack, and though he twist and twirl and tack, alas, still faithful to his back, the pigtail hangs behind him. All right, so let's go back and let's look at each verse, okay? Let's look at each stanza, All right, let's number our stanzas. We've got stanza 1, stanza 2, stanza 3, stanza 4, stanza 5, and then stanza 6 down on the bottom. All right, so let's go back to stanza 1. It says, there lived a sage in days of yore. Well, do you notice this little 1 here beside the word sage? Remember, we've talked about that before. If you see a word and there's a number beside it, chances are, go down to the bottom of that page and they're going to show you what that word means. So we know now that a sage is a wise person. So there lived a wise person in days of yore. Now this just means a long time ago. Okay, there lived a wise person in days of yore, and he a handsome pigtail wore, but wondered much and sorrowed more, because it hung behind him. Now, did you hear any rhyming words? Remember, rhyming words have the same ending sound. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to circle those words that rhyme. I've got your, war, and more. Him. No, that one doesn't rhyme. Now I'm going to go back. This is something new that we're going to do, because this is going to help us answer one of our questions. Let's look at each one of our verses, each one of our lines, and let's figure out how many syllables are in each line. So let's look at the first one. There lived a sage in days of yore. So if I clap that out, there lived a sage in days of yore. Each one of these words has one syllable. So that tells me that this line has 8 syllables, correct? All right, let's look at the next one. And he a handsome pigtail wore. 8 syllables. But wondered, and if this helps you can do this. 1, Wondered has 2. Much. Sorrowed has 2. So I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 syllables again. Do you see a pattern? Because it hung behind him. So 3, 4. That one was a little different, wasn't it? It only had 7 syllables. So let's look at the second stanza and let's see if it follows the same pattern that this first stanza did. All right, let's circle our rhyming words. We've got case, we've got place, and we've got face. So those rhyme. So let's see if this line has 8 syllables. He, 1, mused, 1, upon, 2, this, 1, curious, there's 3, and then case is 1. So let's add up our syllables. 2, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. Uh-oh, let's look at this one. And swore, hid, change, the pigtails place. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All right, I'm seeing a pattern here, aren't you? All right, let's look at the next one. All right, my book's saying curious has 2, so let's go back and fix that. He mused upon this curious case. All right, so I'm kind of seeing a pattern here with my verses, aren't you? All right, so let's look over here at our questions and let's see if that first one, let's look at our first question. It says, which statement best? So the word best. Now, the word best means that there could be more than one answer, but you've got to choose the one that is the best answer. All right, so which statement best describes the last verse of each stanza? So if I go and I look at each verse in each stanza, the last verse in each stanza, we know that that's the one that does not rhyme, correct? So, and it did not have the same number of syllables that the other one did it? So let's look at our choices. Let's look at A. It uses a different meter and does not rhyme with the last words of the other verses. So that's possible because it does have a different number of syllables, so it has a different meter, and it doesn't rhyme with the last words of the other verses. Now, just because we think this is the right answer, does that mean that we're going to stop? No, I always tell you to check every single answer choice. Don't just think the first one, oh, well, yeah, that's right, so I'm just going to ignore it and not look at the other ones. Always read your answer choices, just to double check yourself. Okay? So let's look at B. It uses the same meter and rhymes with words in the first verse. No, it doesn't have the same meter because those had 8 syllables and it did not, and it doesn't rhyme. So I'm going to eliminate B. All right, let's look at C. It uses the same meter. Yes, it uses the same meter, but only the last 2 verses in the stanza rhyme. No, because the last 2 verses, they don't rhyme with each other. All right, let's look at D. It uses a different meter, true, but the last verse rhymes with the other verses. No, so I can eliminate that one. So we know by looking at our choices that the best answer should be A. All right, let's look at number 2. What effect does the rhythm of each stanza have on a reader's understanding of how the sage, remember the sage is the wise person, how he feels? All right, so let's look at this. So we know that the rhythm kind of, the first three lines in your stanzas, they rhyme. But you get to that last one, and it doesn't rhyme, does it? It doesn't kind of sound right. So if we have A, the change in the last line creates a feeling of excitement. Well, if I go back over and I read each last line of my stanza, in the first one, because it hung behind him, that's not really exciting. He wasn't excited because it hung behind him. Stanza 2, not dangling there behind him. No, that's not really exciting either. So I'm going to go ahead and eliminate A because that one's not correct. So let's look at B. The change in the last line creates a feeling of disappointment. Was the sage disappointed because of his pigtail? Yeah, because it just kind of hung behind him. It just dangled there. It didn't really do anything, did it? So I'm not going to eliminate B yet. I'm going to keep that one. But I'm going to look at C and then I'm going to look at D. The change in the last line creates a feeling of boredom and restlessness. Was the wise person restless? No, he wasn't restless. So I'm going to eliminate C. The change in the last line creates a feeling of nervousness and concern. Well, was the wise person concerned because it just hung there? No, he was just kind of disappointed because it really didn't do anything. It hung there. So I'm going to choose B because he was kind of disappointed because it just kind of gave him a feeling of disappointment. It's kind of like failure, like he wasn't really doing anything. All right, let's look at your talk. Now remember, I told y'all that you could do this with a friend, you could do it with your parents. It says, explain how the poet's use of structural elements adds to the meaning of the narrative poem. How do they combine to provide a clear picture of the sage's problem? Make a list of your ideas. And look over at your hint. It says, think of how the stanzas help to tell the story. So a good idea for this talk would be, go back and reread this poem and then tell somebody about this poem. Tell them what it's about. Okay? Jot down some of your ideas that you see when you're reading this poem. Some of your ideas that you get in your head. All right, let's look at your last one. Write. It says, describe how the poet's use of structural elements adds to the meaning of a tragic story. Use at least 2 details from the passage. Use the space provided on page 305 to write your response. So this kind of goes back with this. So when you turn to page 305, describe how the poet uses the structural elements, like his rhythm, his meter, his rhyme. And so you need to give 2 details from the passage. Talk about the meter. What did we discover about the meter? What did we discover about the rhyme? How do those help make the poem more interesting? Okay? And then when you get done, don't forget your checklist down at the bottom. Did you read the prompt carefully? Did you put it in your own words? Did you use evidence? Are your ideas clearly organized? Did you write in clear and complete sentences and your spelling and punctuation? Okay, make sure that you use evidence from the text. Support your answer with evidence from the text. Okay? All right, y'all work hard today, and later on today I will post the last lesson. I like the looks of this poem. This is called Revenge, and she does not look too happy, does she? All right, y'all have a great day. Work hard, and if you need anything, let me know.